As the population grows and civilization moves west, piracy is forced underground. It is 1815. Civilization has come to the land where the Illinois, Kentucky, and Indiana borders meet, down a highway known as Ford's Ferry Road. A prosperous community now occupies the area just south of the once notorious cave in rock. No longer is the cavern a center of lawlessness. After the death of Samuel Mason and Little Harp, some 10 years before, the gangs of roving pirates seem to have dispersed. Or have they?
By the death of Mason and some of the other major river pirates in 1804, 1805, the outlawry on the frontier there around Cave and Rock continued, but it didn't necessarily continue out in the open like it had been. As local governments organized and you had a court system set up, the outlaws had to change their tactics. And what they did, they simply became the law. So the heads of these gangs were also the ones who were serving as judge, or serving as sheriff, or constable, or justice of the peace.
One such man is James Ford, the local justice of the peace in Livingston County, Kentucky, and the owner of the local ferry service.
Ford's Ferry, right on the Ohio River, not far from where we're standing, is a place where travelers were appraised for the sum of their worldly goods, and quite often they'd be set upon after they crossed the river. The proprietor, James Ford, had improved routes for about 12 miles in both directions on the Illinois and Kentucky side.
But Ford does not report any problems with outlaws. Some say because they are members of his own family.
And what he did, he simply used his sons, he used his brothers-in-law, and the gang might be based at Ford's Ferry. But as far as James Ford himself, well, he lived downriver. He was in a different area. He wasn't connected to that.
In a time where only travelers and outlaws cross the river on a regular basis, Ford and his gang have a seemingly legitimate reason to do so.
Ford shows up in the area as a ferry operator, as a militia captain, as a salt operator, as a tavern keeper, and he's active both in western Kentucky and across the river in Illinois in the area of the Cave and Rock. Because he was a prominent person and a well-to-do businessman, people did not see him as an outlaw, at least not initially.
Ford's men patrol the woods along the ferry road, keeping a watchful eye out for prosperous-looking travelers.
Because the Ford's Ferry gang was a modern criminal type of syndicate, it had men stationed everywhere. And as a prospective target approached, word would be spread up and down the trail. Look out for this particular person, or look out for this particular wagon train. So they would be ready to attack them.
A casual conversation yields everything the outlaws need to know. Where the travelers are going, what prospects they have, how much land they hope to buy. The indigent are sent on their way. The rich and the unlucky are directed to a place on the Illinois side known as Potts Inn.
About 10 miles north of Cave and Rock, of the ferry, is a large hill. That hill's known as Potts Hill. There is a stream comes out of the rock formation there, and people would stop there and water their horses. At an early date, Potts has built an inn at that site for these travelers.
Ford has his tavern and ferry house on one side. Squire Potts had his on the Illinois side. In between was a very dangerous no man's land, especially if you looked like you were weak, vulnerable, and had a lot of money.
The owner was a business associate of James Ford, and some say something more.
The man at Potts Inn, Mr. Potts, was a justice of the peace, but he was also a character that is associated with these assaults on travelers coming down the road. The legends state people would cross at Ford's Ferry. The ferrymen would get word up to Potts that here's someone that need to go.
So if Ford didn't do the job on the Kentucky side, or his gang, Potts would finish it in Illinois.
Potts would welcome them at his inn and invite maybe the man of the family or one of his victims out with him to go to the spring and get some water. While admiring his all-weather spring, he would knock him over the head and kill him right there.
The only thing that remains is to dispose of the body and divide up the traveler's possessions. There is a cut of the take, some say, for Ford, Potts, and whichever gang member made the profitable referral. Although no charges are ever brought against the Potts, their alleged method of murder is whispered about for years. One story, perhaps a legend, concerns the couple's young son, Billy, a member of the Ford's Ferry gang.
The Potts Inn story is this. The innkeeper had been perpetrating murders at this inn for many years. His son became a co-conspirator and a murderer and robber and was doing the same thing. But he got caught on the highway one day by some farmers, saw him doing one of his acts and had to leave quickly, and he left this part of the state.
Several years go by. Billy Potts builds a fortune through more legitimate pursuits. One day, he decides to pay a surprise visit to his family.
He put on new clothes, had much money, had a fine horse, and a big beard that his own father and mother did not recognize him.
When Billy Potts stops to take a drink at the spring, he is given the same welcome as any wealthy traveler.
The parents rob the body, take him out to the field and bury him in a shallow grave.
The next morning, some of Billy's old friends come looking for him.
They said, "We just saw him last night, and he was coming to pay a visit on you, and he dressed up with a large coat and had a big beard and a fine horse, and he was going to show you a lot of money. Have you seen him?" And they then realized that it was their son. They ran to the grave, dug him up, and tore up his shirt, and there was a birthmark that they recognized as their son. And so they had supposedly murdered their own son. After about 13 years or more of research on this story, we still can't say absolutely who Billy was, if he really was, what happened to him, if Billy Sr. murdered his son, or what. And he disappears from the face of history, and we would like to know what happened to Billy. We don't know.
One of the things that we do know is that there are a number of graves that we can still identify today in the immediate area of Potts Inn.
Whether truth or fiction, the ironic death of Billy Potts is one of the last stories told in the saga of the river pirates. An era will soon come to an end. In the spring of 1811, a strange apparition appears on the Ohio River and slips past the denizens of Cave in Rock. It emits a pillar of smoke and moves at an extraordinary speed. It is the steamboat Orleans, the first steam-propelled boat to make the trip from Pittsburgh to New Orleans. For the moment, though, it is a curiosity. Steamboat technology will not come to the Ohio in full force until after 1816. But when it does, it changes everything. The speed of the steamboats makes them nearly impossible to attack. And they bring far more passengers than any gang of pirates can handle. In addition, the Western territories are becoming civilized.
After the Louisiana Purchase, when America could establish civil government on the west side of the river that would go after outlaws, that discouraged the whole era of river pirates. Also at this time you had more civilization creep into the area, more churches, better law enforcement, smaller counties, which allowed local law enforcement to better cover the area.
The Ford gang begins to disintegrate as the members start fighting among themselves. After a property dispute, Ford files a lawsuit against one of the gang's most senior members. The prospect of testifying makes the entire gang uneasy, and the case is settled out of court with a bullet. Ford's assassin is never found, and the leaderless gang drifts away. By 1818, travelers down the Ohio find Cave in Rock deserted. One observer describes the lonely site in his journal.
The wilderness appears to here retain its primeval solitude, its gloomy forests unbroken by the hand of man, penetrated only by the wandering hunter and the roaming savage.
Billy Potts will go on to be immortalized in a popular ballad, and a marker still stands at the spring where he is said to have met his fate. The 3 harp wives who had returned to their menfolk so often are put on trial again and released. However, this time they follow a more respectable path. 2 of the wives remarry and cross the river to Illinois. The other settles down to a quiet spinsterhood on the Kentucky side. The heads of Big and Little Harp, and that of Samuel Mason, the gentleman robber, turn to dust along the now forgotten woodland paths. The Cave in Rock bandits will live again in the short story and classic 1941 film, The Devil and Daniel Webster, where the Harps make a brief appearance as members of the Devil's Jury of the Damned. But perhaps their most appropriate legacy is the warning given to disobedient Kentucky children long into the 20th century. The Harps will get you if you don't watch out. Today, a ferry still operates at the end of Ford's Ferry Road, now taking cars instead of victims between Kentucky and Cave in Rock, Illinois. The cave itself is thought by some to be haunted. A few brave souls who have spent the night there tell of hearing ghostly voices in the darkness. Are these the restless spirits of the infamous pirates, or of their countless unnamed victims? The answer may be reserved for those who make their way to Cave in Rock, not in pursuit of plunder, but in search of history.